Hello everyone. Today we begin our discussion on Vladimir Lenin. I'm your host, Klemens von Metternich, and I'm also joined by Khrushchev and Brezhnev as we explore how Lenin's impact is viewed from very different historical perspectives. My name, like I said, is Klemens von Metternich, the former prince of the Austrian Empire and leader of the Concert of Europe. I was born in 1773 in Koblenz, Germany, to descendants of old Rhenish nobles. I went to the University of Strasbourg and switched to Mainz due to the French Revolution. After I finished my study, I moved to Brussels, where my father was the chief minister. Soon after, I took a diplomatic mission to England, where I wrote a pamphlet urging the Germans to fight. When I returned from my mission, my father set up a very advantageous marriage for me with Eleanor Kaunitz, the granddaughter of Empress Maria Theresa's Grand Chancellor. After my marriage, my life became very connected to the political world of the Austrian Empire. I soon started working as a diplomat for Austria. Early in my diplomatic career, I served as Austria's ambassador in several European countries such as Saxony, then Prussia, and later France. While I was in France, I was able to watch the rise of Napoleon, who ruined the balance of power in Europe. My experience in France led to my philosophies about the dangers of political instability and revolutionary ideas. In 1809, during the Napoleonic Wars, I was appointed the foreign minister of Austria by Emperor Francis. My goal as foreign minister was to maintain peace with Napoleon because we were not powerful enough to beat him. I accomplished this goal by setting up a marriage between Napoleon and the Austrian Archduchess Marie-Louise of Austria in 1810. A few years later, I realized that Napoleon's power was starting to crumble, so I helped bring together multiple European powers to oppose him. The defeat of Napoleon in 1815 led to the creation of the Congress of Vienna. From the Congress of Vienna, I led the Congress of Europe, the Concert of Europe, which was an agreement between Austria, Russia, Prussia, and Great Britain to work to maintain peace and preserve the balance of power throughout Europe. In 1819, I introduced the Carlsbad Decrees, which I used to suppress liberal and nationalist ideas that could cause revolution throughout universities and the press. For nearly 3 decades, my influence helped maintain the balance of power throughout Europe, although in 1848, revolutionary movements dominated Europe. Once the revolution made it to Vienna, I was forced to resign and flee Austria. I spent 3 years in exile in England before I returned to Vienna and died in 1859.
Suka blip. Very long speech, Comrade Metternich. My name is Brezhnev. Thank you for having me on the podcast. I'd like to give some background information on myself. I grew up in the Soviet Union and joined the Communist Party as youth. When World War II started and Nazis invaded the Soviet Union, I was drafted, and after the war I became Major General. I then decided to pursue my diplomatic career and became a regional secretary in the Dnipropetrovsk. As I got older, I worked diligently in order to climb up the ladder of command. For example, after Stalin's death, I sided with Khrushchev in hopes of being promoted to a higher command. However, I disagreed with some of Khrushchev's policies and his crudeness in his old age. Therefore, I planned a little bloodless coup to oust him from power as I ranked Khrushchev. After the coup, I declared myself as General Secretary of the Soviet Union. My rule marked by the taking the power, stagnation, unfortunately, and some military intervention abroad. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Khrushchev, former leader of the Soviet Union and devoted secretary of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union from 1953 to 1964, and was the chairman for the Council of Ministers. As leader of the Soviet Union, my primary goal was to strengthen our nation and guide it towards prosperity and stability during a tense period during the Cold War. During this time, the Soviet Union stood as one of the world's greatest superpowers and accomplished political, economical, and technological advancements, putting pressure towards the United States. As I took power after the death of Joseph Stalin, I believe that the Soviet Union was capable of a major turning point in history. While Stalin had played a significant role in transforming the Soviet Union into a militarized and industrial power, his rule also included extreme repression and widespread fear among the citizens of the Soviet Union. I had a vision to advance our nation, but in order to do so, we need to eliminate these previous policies and reforms. In doing so, I disregarded the legacy of Stalin's previous work as the former prime minister of the Soviet Union and embarked on desalinization, creating new reforms to reshape our great nation. Through desalinization, I sought to reduce the climate of fear throughout the nation and build a nation upon a revolutionary past. Many political prisoners were released from labor camps, censorship was diminished, and the Soviet secret police had reduced significantly in power. These changes were not organized to weaken the state of the Soviet Union, but rather to restore faith as a prosperous nation. Through my reforms in industry and agriculture, I provided a more productive and resourceful nation that could provide for our people and create a global position as the superpower of the nation. During my leadership, the Soviet Union was faced with one of the most historic milestones in scientific and technological advancements. In 1957, the Soviet Union had been active in the space race against the United States. During this period, we successfully launched Sputnik, which was the world's first satellite, making an astounding achievement for a nation. My leader was therefore primarily focused on industrialization and campaigned to demonstrate the change that was inflicting upon our nation and the evolution we developed while maintaining socialist ideologies.
As your host and as someone who has long fought to preserve order, I will begin with the rise of Vladimir Lenin. His ascent to power came during the Russian Revolution, a time when Russia was weakened by war, economic hardship, and growing unrest among its people. The authority of Tsar Nicholas II collapsed as dissatisfaction spread, creating an opening for revolutionary groups. Lenin, leading the Bolsheviks, took advantage of this instability by promising peace, land, and bread to the people. Rather than working within existing systems, he and his followers seized power through force, overthrowing the provisional government and establishing a new radical regime. So with that description of Lenin's rise to power, what do you guys think about his rise to power? Anyone want to start?
Lenin, of course, he is the figurehead of the Soviet system. I mean, he's kind of the foundation of the USSR, and he's the triumph of the working class. Am I right, Khrushchev, as a fellow Soviet?
Yeah.
Yeah, come on. I mean, as I described, he's a gigantic figure, and he created the Soviet socialist system. And his ideas guided the Soviet Union just through the creation. I'm kind of getting around here, but I mean, it's Khrushchev. Take this away.
Well, I think his rise to power was something truly inspirational.
No, not at all. But keep talking.
All right, so in my point of view here, he led revolutions. I think that took a lot of courage. I think the way he
Austrians.
I think the way he did it was very important. Because I would say to a certain extent, revolutions are very important because I think that they take immediate action. And Lenin was a leader of the people. He wanted what was best for the people. So I think his rise to power was something that I built my leadership on. I think I took a lot of reforms that he built for the Soviet Union, and I used that in my leadership. Any other comments from you guys?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I completely disagree with both of you, and I believe that his rise to power was sudden and dangerous, and it replaced established order with uncertainty.
Established order?
Yeah.
The provisional government?
Yeah,
Previous.
No.
The dictatorship of the Tsar?
No.
Man, what are you talking about?
Empires, thousands of years.
No.
Before. Okay.
See, Lenin was going. There was a
Hundreds of years
crisis. There was
before, they were stable.
There was a crisis going on in the Soviet Union, and so what Lenin did was he was able to emerge during a period of crisis in the Soviet Union. He was able to bring stability. He was able to help the people recover with peace, land, and bread, as you said.
Peace, land, and bread.
Yeah.
I only said that because I had to. Not that I agree with it, but I'd like to say I have a quote that I'd like to share with you guys, and it's that the first and greatest concern is the stability of the laws, never their change, which basically means that the laws shouldn't be changing, and I think the more stable a country is, the better it is. And I would say Lenin's rise represents a complete rejection of this idea. He replaced established institution with uncertainty and disorder, and when governments lose control and allow extreme ideas to spread, the result is not true freedom, but instability, fear, and unpredictability in society. I don't think he rose through tradition, slow reform, or compromise. He gained power using the problems of war, economic struggle, and public frustration. And I think that just sets a very dangerous example.
All right, well, I'd like to use a statement said by Lenin. Says only one country can do it, and that country is Russia. The Soviet cannot exist long side by side with the ordinary type of provisional government. The offense will be a turning point in the whole policy of the Russian Revolution. So, I think Lenin is criticizing the coalition of leaders as ministers, and he's insisting that a revolutionary democracy can't coexist with the bourgeoisie. And so he's arguing that only a swift and decisive transfer of power can eliminate the capitalist control. So I think...
Keep going.
So I think his main point, Lenin's main point, that I agree with, is that a revolutionary action was necessary in that state. I think it could be what?
I'm sorry. I just wanted to go back kind of what Metternich was yapping about. Yeah, of course, the revolution is going to be dangerous. You said it's very dangerous. Lenin, the quote. He said it would be a relatively long period of development of building a socialist state. So that means, sure, every revolution is dangerous, but it's going to develop into a long-term effect in planning. You can continue on what you were yapping about.
I would just like to say something. I have a question, I guess, for both of you guys. And do you see, do you guys recognize the instability that was caused from Lenin's rise?
I mean, it's a revolution. There's going to be instability. There's instability in the revolution in America, and really every revolution, of course, there's going to be instability, but that over a long period of time, this instability is going to be fixed with a stable. Like in my 23rd speech to the Communist Party, it's a stability of cadres policy, where we can have these leaders and, the top group can stay in power for a long time, that leading to a more stable society. How that worked out, it's kind of up to to want to make their own decision upon.
Mm-hmm.
Except if it goes against the Soviet Union, it's wrong. But yeah.
Yeah, well, I completely agree. I think, instability was something that they were willing to, sacrifice for a short period of time, which would lead to a long period of stability. As I stated in my secret speech, I'm not sure if you guys listened to that one.
No, I've read it a couple times.
Lenin's great service consisted of the fact that he created a militant party of the working class, and he steeled this party in the crucible of the revolutionary struggle of the masses of the people. So I guess this just focuses on how Lenin's more greatest achievement was building a disciplined and powerful working class party. He was involving the working class in a political role, and I think that this eventually strengthened a real revolutionary struggle, ultimately allowing the Bolsheviks to take power. So I think that Lenin allowing the working class to take an active role in the political system was something that he understood, and if it brought instability, he knew that he would recover from it.
Mm-hmm. You bring up a good point. I don't like other parts of your secret speech. Dr. Stalin like that. Yeah. I don't really agree with that. We won't get into that, but...
Salmochi.
Suka.
Alright, well, I've said everything I need to about this, so... Anyone else want to add anything else?
To kind of add on to his rise to power, it wasn't really a seizure of authority, but it started with a historical period. I use this to justify many of my actions in the Brezhnev Doctrine or the intervention in Europe.
Let us now turn to the role of the state and government in society. Vladimir Lenin, through his theory of Leninism, believed that the government should be controlled by a small, disciplined group of revolutionaries who would rule on behalf of the working class. In this view, the state is not simply a structure to maintain order, but a powerful tool used to completely reshape society and create equality. Would anyone like to share their thoughts?
Yes, I completely agree with that. I think that Lenin focused on creating a state that helped build interest towards the working class in society, giving them more of a political role in society. I think that a lot of the states and governments in Europe focused more on like the economic elites, and rather than the ordinary life of workers.
Yeah. Mr. Wilson, I'm done with the accent. As Brezhnev, I kind of reject the idea that like state would quickly disappear after the revolution, led by Lenin. But I kind of argue that socialism will unfold gradually and kind of require a strong and lasting state. And I emphasize that the transition to communism takes a relatively long period of development, and the state must guide society. And also, state can manage the economy, of course, as a socialist country, and the government must sustain the current system and not change it, and that's emphasized through my Stability Cadre's speech to 23rd Congress, which I mentioned previously. Anyone else want to kind of...
Yeah, I'd just like to strongly oppose the way Lenin defines his role of government. I've always believed that the purpose of government is to preserve order, tradition, and stability, and not to constantly reshape society through revolution and force.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Lenin's idea of using the state as a tool of revolution concerns me greatly. A government that exists to overthrow existing social and political structures does not create lasting peace.
Okay, but there has to be a revolution at some point. You're arguing right now that there can never be any, like, not change necessarily, but like change in daily society.
No, I think change can happen. It just has to be gradual and slow. And I think just these old monarchies, we can't just go away from them. That's what I'm saying. And I'd just like to keep going after you interrupted me. I would just like to say I cannot accept the idea of a dictatorship of the proletariat, as it concentrates power in revolutionary hands while destroying long-standing institutions that have provided balance and continuity for generations. In my view, once you allow government to become an instrument of radical change, you open the door to endless unrest. Instead of achieving true stability or freedom, such a system risks spreading revolution across borders and undermining the entire international order.
Well, I would say the dictatorship of the proletariat was intended as a temporary stage to defend the revolution, not as like a permanent system. You kind of mentioned it being more of a permanent system. I think it was just there in order to defend the revolution. And I think, going back to a speech that I delivered during the Cuban Missile Crisis, I stated that we communists are against all wars between states in general. We have always regarded war as a comedy and not as a game, nor as a means for the attainment of definite goals. Our goals are clear, and that means to attain them is labor. War is our enemy and a comedy for all the people. My words basically reflect that war only brings suffering to people, and essentially the duty of our state is not to conquest, but to build society through peaceful progress, reforms that will help focus on the working class as taught by Lenin.
I kind of want to agree with that. Like, in my speech in Red Square, I call upon how our country's a vast communist construction project. The scope of our work is great, but the tasks facing us in all spheres of life are even more majestic. The development of our economy, science, and culture, the strengthening of our defenses of our socialist power, serves the cause of peace and security of all people. Kind of going against what Mr. Metternich said on how the dictatorship of the proletariat, hurts society, and that kind of just shows how maybe it is a dictatorship. Maybe we're a socialist, so that means the people, peace, land, and bread. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd like to add on to that. I think that Lenin argued heavily on the importance of a strong and centralized authority in order to defend socialism and also suppress any counter-revolutionary forces. So I think that...
Sorry, can I agree? Counter-revolutionary forces. Let me just get started there. I completely agree that, the job of the state is to protect against foreign and domestic enemies. And it's like, government should monitor citizens to make sure that they do not go against the meaning of socialism. And for example, in the Sniewski Daniel trial, that really just showed my ability to put down people going against the state. I can explain that. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No,
But those trials were these artsy people. They were exporting literature about the Soviet Union to parts of Europe that kind of downplayed the Soviet Union. So I put them to labor camps for a couple of years. Continue on what you were saying. Sorry.
Well, I mean,
I said jump in there.
it's a bit of an interruption. Kind of almost forgot what I was gonna say here, but I would say, just more of a summary here. I just would say I agree with a strong authority. I think that immediately after the revolution, especially during the Civil War and foreign interventions, this was something that was very important. I think, like you mentioned, Brezhnev, I think that you have to focus a lot.
Leonid.
No. Anyways, I'll just continue. One disagreement I would have is the way that leaders expanded repression long after the revolution was secure. I think that. Okay. I think that repression is only.
If you don't have to raise your hand, you can just say.
Well, I just think
I have a
repression.
question to ask you guys.
Okay, yeah.
You can
Just go for it. It's fine.
All right, so I'm just wondering, can a government that seeks to completely reshape society truly provide stability, or does it instead create the chaos that it claims to solve? Because I think that these governments, it replaces long-standing authority with
And what did the long-standing authority do? It had to retake something. You're
all
going
right,
against
but
yourself.
all right, no, I'm not, and I just don't think
The
that's.
monarchies, they took power from someone else.
I just don't think it's real stability. So I'd just like to know what you think.
No, I think it is real
And
stability.
How
it is.
how it is stability.
Well, I think.
How
Wait.
it's
So
new.
what did you argue? You
How-
argued
just
that
how
we
all
were.
this change leads to stability.
So were
Because
you?
I think it leads to revolutionary actions, and that is actually part of the reason why I died.
Well, we didn't
After
we didn't
the
fully
revolution.
eliminate our past. One thing when I was leader of the Soviet Union was that I focused a lot on ideologies from Lenin. So I went back to the foundation of the Soviet Union.
You are the. Oh, shoot, never mind.
Anyways, so yeah, I would say that I went back to Karl Marx. I also went back to Lenin. So I think that even after you're claiming that it didn't bring stability and we eliminated our past, I think that is just totally incorrect, because I think that it both brought stability and we were also able to bring ideas from the past.
Wasn't Karl Marx German?
Yeah.
Man, Austria is part of Germany, so.
All right. Well, I mean, I've said everything.
Let's leave it off at that point. Where this topic's gonna look,
A little out of hands.
empty.
Well, I just think that
I just got one more thing to
Metternich doesn't
say.
know what he's saying.
Ich hasse ut Russen.
What does that mean?
It's for you to find out.
Das ist Lupen.
It means I hate you Russians. Wow. Okay.
Suka. Blitz.
Let us now turn to the theory of revolution as presented by Vladimir Lenin. Lenin believed that revolution was not only necessary but inevitable. He argued that real change could not come through gradual reform or negotiation, but only through the complete overthrow of the existing system. In his view, a small and disciplined group of revolutionaries should lead the class, seize power, and rebuild society from the ground up. However, from my perspective, this way of thinking is deeply dangerous. It ignores the lessons of history and underestimates the importance of order. I have long warned about the consequences of revolution, once describing the French Revolution as the disease which must be cured, the volcano which must be extinguished, the gangrene which must be burnt out, the hydra ready to swallow up the social order. These are not words of exaggeration, but experienced, and I witnessed myself how quickly a society can fall apart in the French Revolution. So I'd like to turn it over to you guys.
Yeah,
What do
keep
you
yapping, man.
All right, I'm just...
When
moving
Lenin
my
revolted,
point.
he used vanguard,
Yes!
select revolutionaries that took power from the provisional government, and that kind of harnessed the support of the proletariat. There we can kind of see Lenin's theory of revolution of having a trained group of people to turn over the masses. And I personally believe that this revolution was necessary to turn over threats of capitalism emerging in United Socialist Republics.
Yeah, so they established a new socialist government in the Soviet Union, and this determined an organized revolutionary movement that dismantled the existing political system, and it replaced it with new socialist principles focused on the people. And I think that revolutionary change requires decisive and forceful actions. And so I think the producer said we don't have a lot of time on this topic here, but I think the main focus of this is that Lenin's theory of revolution definitely succeeded, and that it did create a socialist state. It challenged the previous authority, and it created a long-term balance of authority. So.
Yeah, I mean, through my works, I emphasize how Lenin never saw this revolution as an end goal, but a beginning of a long developmental process, as I mentioned before, and that kind of required, quote, a relatively long period of development, end quote.
I'd just like to say something. I just think that if revolution is justified in one nation, I think it becomes easier to justify in others, and I think that's a really dangerous cycle that can spread across borders and throughout Europe really quickly. So I think his theory of revolution just is not a reliable path for progress. I think it's kind of reckless with the stability.
Yeah, but revolution is necessary.
Yeah, but I just think
every nation has had a revolution.
Yeah, but I just think justifying it and promoting it makes it easier to spread, which I think then it becomes very dangerous. And
but would you rather have a revolution of just untrained, loose people just revolting, and that's going to lead to many more fatalities than a vanguard group?
Well, I think that there's a lot of balance in this situation. I think that there's a balance between a strong leadership and accountability to the people, which remains essential. I think that in some sense you can argue that it could negatively influence European society, but I think that it was necessary. They had to take decisive action, and I think the way they executed with the October Revolution and then the Bolsheviks seized power, I think their execution was perfect. I think that it's good to focus on connecting to the masses rather than a concentrated power in the hands of a single leader.
What does that mean?
It means yes in Russian.
Yes. All right. Well, I think that's all we got for this topic.
Move on to the next one.
Move on to the next. Now let us examine the broader ideological conflict between communism and conservatism. Conservatism, the philosophy I have long defended, is rooted in the belief that society functions best when guided by tradition, established institutions, and respect for authority. Change must be gradual, measured, and carefully considered because the balance of power and social stability depend on it. Communism, as envisioned by Vladimir Lenin, takes a radically different approach. It calls for the complete overthrow of existing social and political structures, replacing them with a system where property, wealth, and authority are redistributed, and the state is used to enforce equality. While its stated goal is fairness in practice, it requires the suppression of dissent and the use of centralized control to achieve its aims. So would you guys like to talk about communism, as that is?
Yes.
I mean, of course, it's suppression of enemies in the state. I mean, you're kind of just like capitalism. In my speech marking the 100th anniversary of Lenin's birth in 1970, it kind of explained that capitalism is a society without ideals, a society without a future. I mean, that's why communism is the socialist state that we grew today is, so productive. Nikita, do you want to kind of...
Yeah, well, Metternich, you focus a lot on conservatism, and you're, talking about how there's gradual change and, all that stuff, but I would say that my ideologies primarily focus on, the abolition of class divisions and private property. And I think that my point of view on communism focuses a lot on, creating a equal society, not divisions by wealth or class. I think that was my whole process through, de-Stalinization and through creating reforms throughout the Soviet Union, focused a lot on, eliminating all the, political oppression and, focusing rather on the people and how, class divisions shouldn't influence society so heavily. And I think that conservatism goes directly against what I believed in. I think that it's kind of stupid.
Oh, really? Kind of stupid.
Graham, can you leave? I've always believed that Lenin, his vision was powerful, but it didn't reform society, and so that's what I used his ideologies in order to kind of build the foundation of what I believed in. I think I kind of built upon what Lenin had a vision for the Soviet Union. I created reforms, and as his definition of communism, I fully reorganized society.
Keep you out of it.
Sorry.
I kind of, highlight my contribution with the doctrine of developed socialism, which was adopted in the 1971 Party Congress. And this is kind of a concept that asserted that the USSR built a mature socialist society, removing immediate pressure to achieve full communism. In fact, it justified domestic policy, caution, and prioritized gradual development over radical revolutionary action, arguing that all social strata were already emerging.
I'd just like to talk about conservatism a little bit. As I've long believed, freedom is not the starting point of society, but the result of order. And I think conservatism...
What is freedom without bread, land, and peace?
Alright, well, thank you for interrupting me. Conservatism kind of teaches that political change must be slow and careful and rooted in stability. And governments should not be experimenting with society or trying to remake human nature through ideology. Instead, I think they must preserve order, maintain authority, and ensure continuity between the past, present, and future. Sorry. Brezhnev, would you like to say something?
Yeah, I would like to say something. In one of my speeches that was drawn to more of a broader public addressment on, socialist development, I stated that the purpose of our struggle is not to only build communism, but to ensure a better life for all people. So I think it's not focused on, creating control. I think it focuses more on, improving life. I think, the debate that we're having here isn't just about revolution versus stability, because obviously, Metternich, you focus a lot on, stability. You've said that many times, but I think it's more about whether, you believe if a society should be fundamentally changed or more carefully preserved, and if you're willing to achieve that change. And I think that at the state that the Soviet Union was in at the time, I think that, the change was necessary. I think that,
Yeah. The systems are rooted in older class structures are incapable of solving modern social problems. That's why we're kind of going to go against here. Metternich said, standing on to old ways of doing things is kind of bad. You need a modern solution like socialism to solve modern problems.
I'd just like to disagree again. I witnessed the aftermath of the French Revolution, and when my key principles are ignored, revolutionary movements promise freedom and equality, but too often they produce chaos, violence, and uncertainty. So I think that's why I've always argued that tradition is not something to be discarded, but something to be respected as the foundation of stability. So yeah, to me, I would say overall conservatism is not about refusing progress, but I'd say it's more about ensuring that progress does not destroy the very society it seeks to improve. That's all.
Stay out of this for a moment, but
As we reach our final topic, we now turn to the global influence of Vladimir Lenin and how his ideas have shaped the world beyond Russia. Lenin's success during the Russian Revolution did not remain isolated. His ideas inspired revolutionary movements across the world, encouraging people in other nations to challenge existing governments and pursue communist systems. In some ways, his influence reshaped global politics by introducing the idea that revolution could be a tool for international change, not just national transformation. As we conclude this discussion, I must be clear about my overall judgment of Vladimir Lenin and the system he created. Brezhnev, please calm down. From my perspective, Lenin represents a direct challenge to everything I've worked to defend throughout my life. Are you okay, Brezhnev?
Yeah, I forgot to take my painkillers.
No, it's alright. Stability, order, and the careful preservation of political institutions. While his supporters may see him as a revolutionary who brought progress, I see a leader who rose through the collapse of an already weakened state and replaced it with uncertainty. His methods relied not on tradition or careful reform, but on upheaval and force, and history has shown that when order is destroyed so quickly, it is never easily restored. I do not deny that societies can have problems or that change is sometimes necessary, but Lenin's approach went too far, too fast, and with too little regard for the consequences. In doing so, he set a dangerous example for other movements across the world. In the end, I remain convinced that stability is the foundation of all successful governments, and without it, even the most ambitious ideas will eventually lead to instability rather than progress. So, would anyone else like to add something?
Oh my goodness.
That was just like, to keep me yapping, man. I don't know why you think Lenin's such a bad dude. I mean, he literally saved millions of people. He fed the hungry, He ended the war.
I'll let you talk. You just speak.
I mean, I let you speak.
I think this guy just keeps talking about that he doesn't bring stability. I think that's just horrible claim. I think
Comrades, when we reflect upon the enduring legacy of Lenin, we must recognize that his genius did not end with the victory of the revolution. It lives in the course we continue today as the Socialist Republic. It's basically our responsibility to carry out his teachings and implement in full the great ideas of Marxism-Leninism, end quote, which remain like a guiding force of our society and our state. Lenin showed us, not only how to seize power, but build the social system that I guess you could say kind of Khrushchev, but mostly me, built thoroughly.
I'm not going to take that, Khrushchev.
Develop that full state.
Well, from my perspective, Lenin was a great and just amazing and just awesome leader who transformed socialism into a powerful global force. He created a model that inspired revolutionary movements around the world and gave socialism true international legitimacy. His ideas challenged capitalism and reshaped global politics by spreading far beyond Russia. So I think that Lenin was just a very impactful figure, not only for Russia but for the entirety of Europe. I think that later leaders sought to adapt his ideas because of how amazing he was and how just impactful he was. I don't know how you can hate him. And then he shifted towards long-term competition and also peaceful coexistence to make socialism more sustainable. So I think he focused on coexistence. And yeah.
All right. Well, I guess I'll just wrap us up. So, in this discussion, we explored Vladimir Lenin's rise to power, his theory of revolution, his ideas about government, and his global influence. We also compared the opposing perspectives of conservatism and revolutionary change through the views of different historical leaders. Overall, the conversation highlights how one's interpretation of Lenin's legacy depends heavily on how they balance ideas of order, stability, and revolutionary transformation. Thank you, Khrushchev and Brezhnev, for joining me in this discussion.
You have a very nice house. So let's say that. Big house. Many mistresses.
Sorry, my mistress wants me home for dinner. I gotta go.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Please give us a 100, please.